So one of the most common service calls I get is, hey, my heat doesn't work. So I went down, looked at the furnace, saw what it was doing, decided it was my thermostat. So I went to Home Depot, got a new thermostat, came back, put it on, furnace still does the same thing. Can you come out and check it? Well, of course the answer is yes. By showing you what I'm getting ready to show you, I want to reinforce that the best way to take care of a problem with your furnace is to pick up the phone and call a qualified service technician. But if you're inclined to fix your own stuff without help, then I'm going to show you the right way, I guess you would say, to do it without a bunch of aggravation and spending a bunch of money and a bunch of trips back and forth to Home Depot. Alright, so you want to check your thermostat to see if it's not working. Well, here's the easiest thing to do. Go to the thermostat, pull the cover off, just like I just did. This thermostat is not going to a furnace, it's actually going to a recirculating pump. Just change that recirculating pump, and the home or the business owner wanted the pump to run during the day, shut off at night and the weekends, and then come back on when they got ready to come to work. So what I did is I just got a thermostat. I didn't want to buy a new pump with a timer on it, so all I'm using this thermostat for is just a timer, actually, because I'm using a program on it. And inside this box down here there's a transformer and a relay. When the thermostat calls, turns the relay on, turns the pump on. Bad, we're done, without having to buy another kind of pump. So anyway, so on the thermostat you'll have several different wires. You'll have your R, your C, your RC, your O, your G, your Y, and your W. Now we're talking about gas furnaces here. We're not talking about heat pumps. Heat pumps is a total different ball game. But right now all we're talking about is gas heat. Now on your thermostat, unless you bought one from Home Depot, you'll have a little jumper wire from RC to R. If you didn't have that jumper wire and your thermostat wire coming into the thermostat was just on R, it would only work in heat. Or if it was on RC, it would only work in cooling. So first thing to check is to see if you have a RC, and usually it's a RH, not a R. First thing to check is if you have a RH and a RC terminal, that you have that little jumper in between the two. If you don't, there is a chance that if somebody put the thermostat in before, that they remove that jumper, put the wire, put the red wire on the RC terminal, then when you go to switch it in heat, it doesn't come on. So that's one way to check. Now the other way to check it is you get your little jumper wire, like I have right here, and you unscrew that, the R connection, and the W screw. See right there's the W. And then once you unscrew the terminals, you can stick one end of the jumper on one side and the other end of the jumper on the other one. Tighten them up. If your furnace comes on, you know it's a thermostat. So that's the best way to check the thermostat. Alright, so here we're at the furnace, and I've already got the panels open. Got my little jumper wire there. If you just don't have wire like I've got right here, inside the furnace on your low voltage wire, which is the thermostat wire, or the wire going to the outdoor unit, if you look on that wire, you'll see some wires that are just wrapped around it most of the time. What you can do is just take the wire, unwrap it like this, take your wire strippers, just like that, take your wire strippers, cut a piece of it off, strip one end, and then strip the other end till you have something that looks like that. Now I've already taken the white wire and the red wire off, and I'll show you on the board where they connect to. Alright, so down at the circuit board you have different wire connections. If you remember, on the thermostat we had a red wire. Well, that would go right there to where it says R. And that white wire is a W. And then the blue would be common. You can't see it because, or actually yellow, I'm sorry, is Y. That goes out to the outdoor unit. And you see you have another red right here, and that would be your common terminal. And of course G is green. That's your fan. The G is. So what you want to do to test your heat, just like we did at the thermostat, I've already attached the jumper wire, is you attach to red being the R terminal and white being the W terminal. And then all you got to do then is just push the door switch. Now if you jump your furnace out and nothing has happened, and you remember that, hey, I had somebody come out and look at my air conditioning during the summertime, go around and check all the wires. Check every wire, make sure every wire is plugged in where it's supposed to be plugged in. Check these wires right here, the inducer wires. Check the igniter wires. Check every wire, because if there have been cases where the guy that came out in the summertime has pulled the wire loose and left it loose on purpose. Now that's not very honest to do, but there are guys out there that will do it, especially if you've had a bad feeling about the guy. Definitely check all your wires and make sure that they wasn't playing some sort of game. Now once you push the door switch in, this motor up top, we call that an inducer motor, comes on and runs. Then your igniter comes on. And then after so long, your flame comes on. Well, after the flame has come on and ran, every manufacturer is different, your fan will come on. So that's the fan came on and ran. So everything on this furnace is working fine. So if that happens, if everything happens like that, you let it run for a little bit, and if everything's good, then yes, it's the thermostat. But it could be the case where your filter is dirty, your limit's tripping, and we'll go through that here in a second and show you what happens. But you got to make sure everything is working and stays working before you say, yes, the thermostat's bad, I'm just going to go change it. Alright, sometimes what will happen is, of course, your inducer comes on and runs, and your igniter comes on. Your flames come on. And then your flame shut off. If you come across something that's like this, first thing you want to do is check your flame sensor. Now, the flame sensor is pretty important. You can't jump it out or anything like that. If it's gone, it's gone. But it's located somewhere on where the burners are, somewhere close to the burners. And in this case, it's that little terminal right there. Right there where my finger is. To get it out, if you look, there's a little 1/4 inch screw. Sometimes a quarter, sometimes it's 5/16. Either way, you gotta take it off Just unscrew it. Just one screw holds it in place. Like so. Reach in there, pull it out, like so. And then look at it. A lot of times, that thing is completely covered. Every time I do a maintenance, I check the flame sensor. And whether it looks like this or it's all dirty or whatever, what I do then is I just take my screwdriver and I just take the little square part of the screwdriver there and just clean it up. Because we're just cleaning it off is all we're doing. The screwdriver works really good to do that. So that's pretty much it. And then so if yours was really dirty when you looked at it, pulled it out, then clean it off, put it back in, and start the furnace up and see what happens. Alright, so we got the flame sensor cleaned up. Let's see what happens. There goes the igniter. Flames are on. And now it's running. So in this case, that's all the problem was, is it just had a bad flame sensor. Now the furnace is pretty smart. If you jump your thermostat out and you come up and you look at the circuit board, you have a red LED that's flashing. Now, somewhere on your furnace, there's a list of codes, and you can tell what's wrong with the furnace about 95% of the time if you just read what those lights are. Like this one is blinking 3 times. See that? Now, you gotta find on your furnace where your diagnostic light code is. Now I was at one the other day and I couldn't find it anywhere. The installer had left the instructions. I looked in the manual and there it was. What the lights mean. Well, in this particular furnace here, the diagnostic code is on the board. And so we said that it was flashing 3 times. You go over and you see 3 flashes, and you come down and it says the pressure switch problem. Now that could be the pressure switch stuck open, could be the pressure switch stuck closed. Either way, you have a problem with it. Understand what happens with these furnaces when it's calling for heat, in order to know what to look for. So on this furnace, what happens is when it gets a call from the thermostat, it sends a signal up to the inducer, which is right here. Once the inducer comes on, it creates a vacuum. When it creates a vacuum through the tube back here in the back where my finger is, that's the vacuum tube, it pulls the pressure switch shut. When it pulls the pressure switch shut, it sends a signal back to the circuit board saying, hey, I'm good on that end. And then once it sends a signal back to the circuit board, it sends a signal to the relay on the board for the igniter. Then after the igniter comes on, there's a time limit there, and that's set by each manufacturer. Once the time is met, it sends a signal to the gas valve to turn the gas valve on. Once the gas valve comes on, you have flame. Once the flame hits the flame sensor, it sends a signal back to the board, says, hey, I'm good. Sends a signal to the fan. Voila, you got heat. So if you know how it works, you'll know what to look for. So in this case, let's push the button, the door switch. And remember, it was flashing 3 times. See the red light there? Flashing 3 times. So we know that the first thing supposed to happen is the inducer motor is supposed to come on. So what we do is we look at the inducer, we feel it, see if it's hot, because a lot of times it could be locked up. It's locked up, it'll be smoking hot most of the time. What you can do then is pull your flue off a little bit and kind of look down inside there to make sure a squirrel or something like that hadn't came down in the flue pipe. If that's happened, you got to clean them out. Well, if that's all clear, now you can't do this unless you have a meter. If you don't have a meter, you're not going to be able to do it. Come on over to where your connections are. In this case, it's just a Molex plug. Pull it off. Stick your leads. Stick one lead in one side and one lead on the other. Stick one lead in the other. And then push your button again. If you got 120 volts, good chances your motor's bad. But in this case, I've actually unplugged it, so that's why it wouldn't come on. Alright, so that's good. Push the button, inducers come on, and we're good. Alright, so now we're going to check in our furnace again. Got a door switch plugged in. Alright, so our board's flashing 3 times. Alright, so we know the first thing that's supposed to happen is we're supposed to get in a call for the inducer. Well, if you look from on my meter here, we have 1 volt. See, I'm checking power right there. We have 1 volt. Now this is the most important reason you have to have a meter, because if you don't, you're never gonna somebody would have condemned the inducer motor. When the real problem is our pressure switch is stuck closed. The nice part about these furnaces nowadays is the modern furnaces, and this one's not too modern since it was made in '94, is if that pressure switch is jumped out or stuck closed, it will not bring the furnace on. Now, let me show you what happens when, let me reconnect the motor there and show you what happens when I disconnect one of those wires. I've got the wires connected back. Still flashing 3 times. Now watch this. Inducer comes on and runs. So that's why the meter is one of the most important tools that you need to work on this furnace. Alright, the next thing we're going to talk about is the igniter. Alright, so we got our door switch pushed in. Our inducer's running. We don't hear a click. We don't see the igniter glowing, so there's something going on with it. You hear the gas valve click? It's letting out gas right this second. But because the flame sensor is not sensing flame, it automatically knows to shut the furnace down, or shut what's going on down. So the flame sensor is definitely a safety. The way to check the igniter is, once again, get your meter and put your meter in there and watch it, and if you get 120 volts, then you know the igniter is bad. Now here's the igniter that I changed out of this furnace about 3 years ago. See the white on it? Well, that's a pretty dead giveaway that the igniter is bad. It's actually got a crack in it. 2 important things with this igniter. It is very fragile, number 1. So you don't want to be beating it on something. See, you don't want to hit it, because that'll break. And second important thing is never touch that with your fingers. If you touch it with your fingers, you might as well go buy a new one and keep it around for a couple days, because you will be changing it again. So not much to talk about on the igniter. It's just be careful with it and don't touch it with your fingers. Also, on the newer furnaces, that was a 120 volt igniter. On the newer furnaces, they have 80 volt igniters. And there's no real way of knowing. It doesn't say on it 80 volt, 120 volt. It just is what it is. So they won't interchange. Another important reason you need to call a qualified service technician. Well, that's pretty much on the furnace. It was just kind of the basics about how it works and what does what. If you're a homeowner and you insist on working on your furnace, just know this, that just because you saw the flame come on and run for about 3 seconds and shut off, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is a flame sensor. It could be a bad ground. It could be several different things that would cause that. So, you know, don't go wasting your money and the time in going and buying a new flame sensor, because, you know, most of the time they don't go bad, they get dirty. There's slight chance sometimes they'll get a crack in them. I've only replaced just 1 or 2 flame sensors, so most of the time it is not. Pressure switch can't be jumped out. Now on this particular furnace, Trane has decided to bring the vacuum port or the vacuum tube from the housing here into the pressure switch, but most all the other manufacturers have the pressure switch mounted up here and they have a tube going over to the top of the inducer. Now if it's flashing a pressure switch code, the one thing you can do is go to the top of the inducer where that hose is attached, pull that hose off, and then take your thermostat wire, like we have for the jumper wire, strip all that insulation off the wire, and then kind of stick it in there and clean that port out. A lot of time that port will get clogged up and it will cause the pressure switch not to close. So that's something you can do yourself. Whenever I'm on a maintenance, I do that on all of them because I just don't want that call. It's just a nuisance call for me. I'd rather not even mess with it. So I just clean it while I'm there. But that's something else you can check. So as a homeowner, if your furnace is broke, you saw that there's only a couple things that you can check for. You know that you can't jump the pressure switch out because the furnace won't let you, because it knows that there wasn't any power here before, and if you jump it out, it will know, so it won't bring the furnace on. You learned about the inducer port for the vacuum hose for the pressure switch. If that port is dirty, then it will not come on, so you learned how to clean that. And that's pretty much the only thing that you can do as a homeowner, unless you have a meter. But the best thing that you can do as a homeowner is just call your service guy. So that's pretty much it on how to troubleshoot your own furnace. If you're a homeowner and you've come and checked everything that I've told you, checked all the wire connections, make sure there's nothing disconnected, making sure that none of the low voltage wires have broke. I have been on service calls where the wire was broke right under the insulation, and it would work sometimes and then sometimes it wouldn't work. Turned out to be the low voltage wires. You learned about the flame sensor, how to clean it. You learned about the inducer port, how it will get clogged. You learned that you cannot jump the pressure switch out, because if you do, the furnace knows and it will not run. You learned it about the igniter. We didn't talk about the high limit, but the main limit here is your filter's dirty or your returns are blocked. It will, or the fan motor goes out, it will trip the main limit, causing your furnace not to work. Do not ever jump this out. If you jump this out, if you think that everything is working fine, you jump it out, you leave, a couple hours later, the fan motor goes out, you will be calling the fire department. So never jump the main limit switch out. Never. I don't care how long you're going to leave it. Only if you're testing it. That's the only time you're going to ever jump it out. But I wouldn't even go that far if I was a homeowner. But never, ever, ever jump the main limit switch out. Do not jump any switches out. They're there for a reason. If you jump this switch right here out, that's a little roll out. If you jump it out, something's wrong with your heat exchanger and flame rolls out and you've got this jumped out and you're in bed, you'll never know it, and there's a good chance you'll never wake up. Also, one other thing you can check is your ground wire. These furnaces need a good ground. If they don't have a good ground, they will not work properly. They may work one time and not work 3 other times, and then come on and work again, and it will drive you nuts. Always check your grounds. Turn your power off at your switch. Of course, I hadn't had the power off at all because I've been using a door switch. But turn your power off, open your junction box here, and check all your wire connections, make sure they're all good. And then, because it could very well be a bad ground. I've had that call before. The furnace works sometimes, sometimes it doesn't. Come out, check it out, and it'd be a bad ground. Fix that, and then everything works fine.